I have an update. It is Tuesday, July 30th, 12:05 p.m. Shout out to Stories by Kayla for your really sweet comment congratulating me on my 39K words. Thank you for your sweet comment. I just saw the notification. But I have a very big update. The past few days, I have been writing my character's psychological fugue catharsis segment, and I have really loved writing that. When I braked earlier this morning to think about how to transition that segment, a flood of realizations came upon me, and I cried because I realized that this segment that I love so much actually does not fit well with everything else I've written. For me, this is how I want to be established as a writer. I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a great world builder, and I've really struggled and really not enjoyed those parts in my story. I've done it out of necessity, to practice, to try something new. And comparing that experience to writing what I wrote in the past few days, I realized I want to feel like the latter than the former. I'm not quitting this challenge, disclaimer, but I've got two new pivots on my mind. Let me start with a little bit of context. So, I've watched a lot of videos in process on YouTube. I love them. They are so helpful for the writing journey. And I have watched a lot of videos where people will write to like 140, 150K words to then go back and edit and cut like 50K of them. And I've always looked at that and was like, man, that's so wild. Like, how do you even get to that point to write 150K words to then have to cut 50? And then how do you make that decision? When I began this challenge, my expectation was that I would just write, finish it all the way through, clean it up a little bit at the end. On day 39 of my 90-day novel writing challenge, however, I have realized that my first 37,000 words of this manuscript are a no-go. For the story I really want to write, which is that last 2,400 or so words, I would rather give up that 37,000 for the 2,400 that I love. Does this mean I'm quitting this challenge? No. It just means my challenge is now extended longer than expected, and I think I'm also gonna make some tweaks to the challenge moving forward. The way that I'm writing now, this is what I want to write, and it is not in the genre of speculative fiction. It is literary fiction, and really, truly, that is my sole genre. Pretty much all the books I love are of that genre. I do love the fantasy, I do love the speculative fiction from time to time. I learn a lot from reading in that genre, but as a writer, I am just not into the world building because I'm not good at it, but also my brain is more poetic. My brain is more into metaphors and lyric than it is in a totally other category of style. I respect the art of world building. I really do. I admire those authors who can do that. They are genius. I just realized I'm not interested as much in writing about the world building as I am about more poetic presentations of the human condition. That is a very different genre categorization. So, that all said, I'm going to continue this challenge in a different direction. I have learned so much from writing every single day for 39 days in a row, and gleaning from what I've learned in this insanely challenging experience, I'm going to make some modifications. So, my modifications for my new and evolved 90-day challenge, I'm going to get up every single day between 5 and 6 with a little bit of flex, because I'm a woman and I go through hormones. When I'm on my period, I am in a very different physical state than otherwise, and I think that needs to be accounted for. So wake up every morning 5 or 6 a.m. with a little bit of flex, and I'm gonna put a time limit stop at noon. In terms of word count, I'm going to give myself a margin, 500 to 1,000 words daily. And I'm doing this because literary fiction is more contemplative in nature, and it just takes a lot more time to really iron out those sentences. For me, it's way easier to write like descriptors of like a world setting, even though I don't enjoy it as much. It's harder for me to write those poetic lines. It's really hard, but I love that kind of challenge so much. To give you an idea of an author I aspire to write like, Fernando Pessoa in the Book of Disquiet. Yes. And that kind of writing, the poetic writing, it's harder for me, but I enjoy it so much more. So let's talk about the flex component that I'm adding into my modifications. Extenuating circumstances, I'm not gonna put pressure on myself to get my words done. Especially with literary fiction, it just can't be rushed. However, even on a flex day, my aim for this challenge is still to write every single day. On those flex days, it might be 50 to 100 words, and if that's all I can come up with, I'm going to be good with that. I am also going to give myself room to toggle. I have that other story I incidentally started with my left hand. I think I mentioned it like a few episodes back. And though for the majority of the next 90 days that I'm going to tag on to this challenge, I'm going to be focusing primarily on one manuscript. If I'm stuck in a rut, I'm going to allow myself to toggle to my secondary manuscript to get my word count in. For my second big pivot, I'm going to do something very, very bizarre. I'm going to open source the 37,000 words that I am walking away from. Here's how that's gonna work. I'm going to finish publishing the remaining 37,000 words onto Kindle Vella. And for those of you who are really interested in that story and really bond with it, I'm gonna let you use the structure, use whatever I have, character names, character beginnings and stories, use the sentences I have to inspire your own version of the story or for you to write off of this story. What I ask of you though is to just leave a comment on Kindle Vella that you are running with the story to make it your own, or use some of the characters, or use a line. Just make a comment so that I can follow along, and then keep me posted on your progress, because I would love to see if someone does really take off with it and does something really cool with it. So this video is my verbal consent for you to do that, and that's my update on my new direction in the 90-day novel writing challenge. To wrap up today, however, from my last clip, I wrote 489 words for the day. I'm going to write 11 or so more, 11 intentional words. I've already extracted that last bit, the last 2,500 words that I really love, into a separate manuscript. And for today, we're going to cap off at 500 words. I'm going to continue numbering this challenge consecutively, but I'll indicate with an addendum that it's a modified continuation.